Hey guys, today we're talking about the user interface on the Funmat Pro 410. Now, one of the biggest gripes in the 3D printing community is the MS-DOS prompt style wheel and button interfaces that you have to deal with on a lot of modern machines. The next step up from that is, a basic interface with some blocky buttons and whatnot, but Intamsys has really stepped the game up with their new 410 interface. It's almost like a mini computer inside the printer. So there's a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of things you can, there's a lot of features that just don't exist on other ones, and a lot of things they've done to make the whole process easier. So we're going to dive right in, and I'm going to give you the whole overview of everything on this screen. So we'll just start right at the top. We'll go across this top bar here. You'll notice, of course, the logo. And then here you've got a little locking symbol. And that's actually the same lock symbol as that one. And if you touch it, it actually locks the top door. So this thing is locked, it's secure, it's solid. And you just tap it again, unlocks, and you can open it back up. To the right of that is the webcam button. If you press that, it shows the webcam on the screen. If I stick my hand in here, you can see me waving around right there. This is really nice because it's a high quality webcam, gives a lot better view than a lot of the previous models, and it actually works. That's a great little thing. And then to the right, we've got our connectivity settings. You've got the connection, the internet settings for the cable, for the Wi-Fi, and then for the remote IP and some other features that we'll get into later. To the right of that, you have the errors. If there's ever any errors or anything, it'll pop up with a code, and you can access those errors from this screen. So this is a good way to diagnose, okay, what's going wrong with my machine. And Intamsys, or we will ask you, when you call, you bought a machine from us, you call us, it's error code 237. Oh, okay, that means the water cooling's getting too hot, let's look into it, or whatever the case may be. So that's really nice, and you can just clear it out right there. And then to the right of that, we've got the drive settings. So you notice it says U-disk right now, that's USB disk. You've got SD, U-disk, FTP, and flash. We pretty much use the USB stick here. It plugs right into there on the machine because we found that over cables and other methods, it's not always as reliable. We like just having a solid thing that's stuck in there, it's good to go. So moving right along, we've got this lock button on the top right, and that just makes it go, it locks the screen, and it just gives you the time and the date and a cool little splash screen. So that's the whole top bar, and moving right along, this screen, this is where it starts out. This is the print menu, and right up here at the top, we see it says no file loaded, and the two materials that are selected currently in the material menu. So if I go over to the material menu, you'll see it says PPSU and nylon. So that's just little indicators, and then this will actually be the progress of your print. So it tells you the percentage that it's completed, and then it also tells you the time and the amount of time left, and the percentage down here on the bottom line. To the right of that screen, we have the key indicators. We have the main stats you want to look at, and that's left nozzle, right nozzle, build plate, and the chamber. So this gives you the actual temperature on the top and the set temperature on the bottom. Touching these doesn't do anything right now, but if I touch this tiny little blue arrow, it shows me a little more information, and that shows the filament chamber temperature and the humidity monitor, as well as the water cooling temp, and then the weight of the left and the right spools. So when you put a spool in here, it actually measures the weight, tells you how many grams are on that spool. And that's another setting that you can set the standard weight of a spool later on in a different menu. From there, if you have developer mode on, you'll be able to touch this little gear, and that actually gives you a command prompt where you can send different commands to the printer for debugging or testing or playing with different scripts, things like that. Nice little feature, and that's when developer mode is on, which is also later in the menu. So clear that. I'm going to go ahead and get out of that menu. So that's everything for the first print menu. Now we're going to move in to the tune menu. That's right there, the second one down. Now, this is a great screen that you'll spend a lot of time on, and it gives you all the different temperatures throughout the machine, as well as a couple different settings that can be changed during printing, like material flow, fan speeds, things like that. So obviously we've got left nozzle, right nozzle, build plate, chamber, filament, print speed, material flow, left and right fan speeds. If I want to change one of these, I want to change, say I want to make the right nozzle at 200 Celsius. I just tap the right nozzle, build plate, right nozzle, and then I can use these arrows to go up certain degrees, or I can use this jog wheel, which gives me the full range of the hot end, all the way up to 500. So if I want it to 200, I'll just go right there. Let's go 203. There we go, 203, and then I hit set for the right nozzle. You hear it beep, and it's going, it's heating up, it's doing its thing. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that back off because we don't need it right now. All right, so moving on, same thing with the chamber, the build plate, the filament chamber, and everything maxes out at its own max. So as you'll see here, the filament chamber only goes up to 70, and therefore the jog wheel only goes up to 70. All right, same thing with the fan speeds and everything else. And that's about it for this screen. But this is all your major specs, all your major temperatures and everything else during the print. Next, we go down to the axis menu. Now this is one of my favorite things about the machine. Why would axis, moving different parts around, be my favorite part of the machine? Well, frankly, on other machines and on older machines, it can be very tedious to move the head around where you want and move the bed down, drop the bed, home everything. But here, they give you a whole bunch of options. So, right up here, you'll see that we have the different steps, the move steps. And that allows us to choose how far it's going to move the axes when I click the button. So, we've got 0.1 millimeter, 0.2 millimeter, 1 millimeter, 10 millimeter, and 100 millimeter. I'll just pop this open right here. If I want to, say, move the bed down 100 millimeters, I'll just select 100 millimeters and then hit down on the Z axis, and the bed moves down 100 millimeters relatively quickly. If I want to move it back up 10 millimeters, select 10 millimeters, and I can go in steps of 10 millimeters. Whatever's selected, the same works for the head. So if you watch that, I'm going to move 100 millimeters to the right and 100 millimeters back. And it just goes. It's smooth, it's quiet, it's quick because you're in a maintenance mode. It's not like worried about ramming anything. And also this thing has optical end stops, optical limit switches, which make it, it's great. You're not going to smash and break your limit switches, resulting in catastrophic failure like on some of the older machines we see out there. If I want to bring all this back, I can just hit, I can home the X and the Y, I can home the Z, which will bring it all the way up, or I can home all three. I'm just going to do that right now. Let's home all three. Boom. It moves back up, and we're ready to go, ready to start a print. It knows where everything is because I homed it, and we're ready to start a print. Now, another great feature that we haven't seen on many other printers is dropping the Z all the way down. This is something if you're doing maintenance or anything else like that and you want to get in there and have plenty of room, this is a great feature. All you do is hit this button right here, boom, and it moves down. It's the little things. It's the little things that make using this machine so much nicer than anything else we've ever had. From there, it does tell you the X, Y, and Z positions of each axis. I'm just going to home the Z again right there. And then it also gives you the ability to extrude and move the extruder motor, which is a really handy thing if you just want to purge the nozzles or run some cleaning filament through, something like that. So right here, you can choose the E left or E right, which is just extruder left or extruder right, and that'll select which nozzle you're going to use. So let's just switch it over to the left. Oh no, it's already on left. Let's switch it to the right, and that'll move the nozzles. It has this whole actuating system where it moves one nozzle down and back up so that it doesn't ram into the print while you're going and printing. So, good feature, and that just lets you do it manually right here from this menu. One of the best things, man. I tell you, for maintenance and general use and actually using it day to day, having a robust menu like this makes a huge difference. You don't have to sit there and go, hang on, yeah, it'll get there eventually. You know, no, it's just like, oh, perfect, Z down, cool. All right, let's get in there, do our thing. Very, very nice. Well done, Intamsys. Thank you for that. Okay, so moving right along into the material menu. This is another great menu because you have some of the options here like manually extruding, as we saw in the previous menu, but you also have the actual material selections, which you can scroll through and you can make custom materials in here with whatever names you want and select those at any time. You can do it on both sides, and let's just leave it how it is, or maybe I'll change this one to polycarbonate. Can change the extruder temperature right here, 0 to 500, very, very easy. And then you hit the, you know, if I wanted to go to 85, and you hit set temp, and there you can see it's currently 40 on the top, and it's set to 85 on the bottom. Take that back down to 0. And then below that, depending which extruder is selected, as you can see, I can change it right there. I can go from the left to the right. If I want to load or unload filament, this is where I do it right here. Now, there is a long filament path from the chamber down here, all this filament in here, going all the way up the back and into the hot end up top. Loading and unloading, you use an automated feature so that it feeds it all the way through. And you can do that right here. If I want to hit load, then it says check if the old material was out. If yes, press next to do the unload process. You hit next, it'll heat up the nozzles, and then it'll go and tell you to install the material, and then it'll say material is unloading, is loading up. That'll take about 30 seconds to a minute, and then it'll be ready. So I'm just gonna cancel that out so that we don't overheat our nozzles here. Set itself back to 0, very good. And same thing for the unload. And it's basically gonna heat up and unload whatever material's in there. Very simple, very straightforward. Gives you step 1, 2, 3, 4, no guessing, it just works. Very well done on that. Of course, every time you're loading, remember, you gotta chop that filament, give it a nice little angle so that when it does get to the hot end, it feeds through easily. That's not really an issue on this printer. They've designed that really well, but that is always something to watch out for. So yes, I'm going to abort. Also on this menu, we have the leveling features right here. So we have the M and the A. The M is for manual leveling, and the A is for auto leveling. This machine has both. Now, auto leveling uses a mechanical switch that takes the hot end, the nozzle, and actually touches the nozzle, triggers the switch above the nozzle, and that tells it where it is. And you can set your Z offsets and things like that. And then, of course, there's also manual leveling, which is where you do that yourself and you fill everything out. Both work, both are great. Choose whichever one suits you. If I go to manual and then say leveling, I can do leveling, Z calibration, and the XY calibration. Now this is important because the XY calibration is how you set up the dual extrusion. To make sure that the nozzles and the tips are perfectly aligned, this has a whole sequence it'll take you through where it prints a little bit here and a little bit there, and you adjust it based on that to make sure everything's just perfectly spot on. You make it pretty easy, it's very good. So of course you would start with leveling, go to the Z calibration, which is where you tell it exactly how far the nozzle is from the bed, and then you move on to the X and Y if you need to. Pretty much once you've done the X and Y once, you're good to go. So just show you real quick, we've got auto leveling as well, same exact steps, not much different. Then down here we have the Filament Library, and this is cool. So if I click this, it shows me all the specs and all the stats for all these different materials. And I can either go and select one, and that'll populate it in here, and then, you know, let's do PLA, even though we'll never print PLA on this machine. We can set it to, you know what, I'm gonna change that to 200, oops, let me delete. like say, it's a mini computer. So 210. Build plate, I want to be 60. The chamber is 0. We don't want any heat with PLA. You want to keep it actually cool in the chamber. Preheat time, we don't need any preheat for that, but for peak and ultim and things like that, you would. The density, which I'll have to look up, peak is 1.32 grams. Material chamber temperature, which would be 0 for PLA, but obviously for peak and everything, you're going to max that out at 70 to keep it nice and dry. The unload temperature, which you can, there's a melt point and there's an extrusion point. Like the melting point of peak is 343 Celsius. We extrude it and print it around 400 to 450 Celsius. But you can actually unload it at around 350, 360, just above its melting point so that it melts out of the nozzle and you can pull it out, but you're not going to burn the nozzle and carbonize it and ruin your nozzles by leaving it in there too long, too hot. So from there, you have the maintain build plate and maintain chamber temperatures. These are for after the print. When the print is done, this is one of the things that Intamsys has been doing. When you're printing high temp, you want to let it sit. If you need to let it sit overnight, say it finishes at 2 in the morning, you don't want that plate cooling down because it'll shatter the glass. We do have carbon fiber build plates for this machine. Check out our website. We've got those available. You save a lot of money over time by not breaking glass build plates. So the maintain temperature and the maintain chamber temperature are used for all the high temp filaments, and that's just something good to have. And you can set that, you can set the temperature as well as the maintain time. So from here, once you've set up all the settings the way you want, then you can hit save. I'm actually going to change the name real quick. PLA Z. Okay. Now let's hit save. Oh, save changes to the material database. Actually, no. I'm going to insert. Now I've got PLAZ right there, and I'm going to save. Save changes to material database. Now I've got PLAZ and PLA. I can exit. I can go right back in, and there's my custom material. This is a great thing. Really makes it easier to do. You can change stuff, remove stuff, insert, append, and load. It's a beautiful thing being able to preset all the temperatures and settings for your different materials. Next, we have the system. Now, this screen is great because it gives you a bunch of information about the actual printer. So we've got the OS version, the operating system version, the software version, and the firmware version. The software is actually on the screen. This user interface, it has its own software, its own version, and the OS. And then the firmware is the actual machine for the motherboard and the motors and the drivers and everything else. Below that, you've got free space, so it's got a disk internally there that you can load stuff on. Got the date, the time, listen after start, Wi-Fi auto connect or auto reconnect, developer mode, which we showed earlier in this, as well as USB print enabled or not enabled. With USB print, you can actually print when you're plugged into USB. We don't recommend it. You really don't need it. But that is an option. Then you can actually watch the live status of the print on the computer, which is pretty cool and can come in really handy for debugging and diagnosing exactly how a print's going, if it's globbing, things like that. Okay, so we're just going to leave that disabled. And then over here, we've got the menu for software upgrades, to restore, upgrade, or restart, and the firmware to restart. And it's kind of cool because you can actually just stick the firmware and everything on a USB stick, pop that right in there, and do it all from this menu. You don't have to have another computer hooked up to it to actually do it, which is nice, especially if you don't have a laptop free, handy, ready to go. So from there, you also have another one of these tiny little blue triangles. And if you press that, it gives you the secondary menu. You've got auto or material chamber. So you've got the filament chamber auto heating. So that'll automatically start heating when you turn on the machine and when you start everything. You've got the door lock to be enabled or disabled. You've got the filament chamber auto heat, which will automatically turn on the filament chamber when the machine comes on and when you're printing. You've got the door lock enabled, which is another button for the door lock on the top. The liquid cooler control. That's an interesting one. I have no idea what that does. The liquid cooler control. the motors enabled, so if you want to turn off the motors while it's still on and move the head around, you can do that. Auto leveling enabled, so it will automatically auto level before every print, and that's something you can enable or disable. You know, once you've got it dialed in, once it's level, you don't always have to use that, so that might be something you want to turn off. And then you've got the left clamper, the right clamper, which is the alignment of the hot ends and how it moves them up and down and where that's at. So this is fine tuning for the dual extrusion. All right, so this is where you set the weight of your spool. If you're using one of our metal spools to dry your filament, then that's 552 grams. Every spool is different. If you're using our metal ones, which you should be, then that's where you set it right there. So we'll just leave that as it is, hit set, go back to the menu, and that is about it. Go back here. If you hit this lock button in the upper right corner, obviously it goes back to the splash menu. That is the brief overview of the user interface on the Funmat Pro 410. It's definitely stepped up from all the previous machines we had, but I tell you, just having something like this makes it a joy to use compared to other machines. Really digging it. Thank you, Intamsys. Anyway, so we got this machine on our site. We've got them in our shop. We're using it every day. When you buy from us, you get our team and our knowledge and our experience right there with you to help you. We're based in Southern California, and we've got a whole line of high-temperature 3D printers, the nanopolymer adhesive, glues, and other accessories that we've made just to make our lives easier, and then we share those with you guys to make your lives easier. So, if you got any questions, leave them in the comments below. Happy to make more videos and show you anything and everything you want about these 3D printers. We love hearing about what you guys are doing as well, so hit us up sometime. If you're interested in getting into high-temp 3D printing, definitely check out visionminer.com. We got all kinds of resources up there to help you get started. So as always, hit that like and subscribe if you liked what you saw. Ask some questions in the comments below. We love making more videos. Thanks for watching this one, and we'll see you on the next one.